Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, on this beautiful April 7th, we are so pleased to have with us again Rabbi Ari Goldstein of Temple Beth Shalom in Arnold, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 33rd District. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you. So if you permit me for 1 second to go off script and to merely tell you that I know that my face has become mildly regular here, but let not the regularity of my appearance in any way diminish from my feeling about being here. Every moment and every time I step foot in here, I feel it to be an honor because I know that I'm standing in front of people who are making such an important difference, who are showing the way politics can work. And I'm so grateful for what you do on a very personal level. And so now, our God and God of our ancestors, as we gather together in the final week of the legislative session in this historic chamber, we are ever mindful of the weight of the past and the hope of the future. We ask for your blessing upon the women and men of the Maryland State Senate as they take up the sacred task of governance. Grant these public servants the gift of discernment to distinguish between the urgent and merely the important. In a world often filled with noise, grant them the gift you gave to King Solomon, the gift of a hearing heart, that they may understand the needs of all Marylanders, from the bustling streets of Baltimore to the tranquility of the Eastern Shore, and from the peaks of the West to the suburbs of the South. May the deliberations in this room be guided by the prophetic call of the prophet Micah to seek justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. In moments of disagreement, let there be respect. In moments of decision, let there be courage. Remind us all that while our perspectives may differ, our shared humanity and our commitment to the common good are the foundations upon which this great state stands. O source of peace, bestow your protection upon the families of these leaders who share in the sacrifice of public service. Bless our communities with safety, our neighbors with prosperity, and our hearts with a spirit of giving and equity for every soul who calls Maryland home. May the work done here today be a source of light, bringing us closer to a world of wholeness and peace. Amen. Thank you.
Recognized Senator from the 33rd.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to welcome back Rabbi Goldstein from Temple Beth Shalom. I really appreciated also the reminder of what an honor it is for us to all be in this chamber, especially this time of year where I think it's hard for a lot of us to remember that. So I really appreciated your words, and I would ask that his remarks be journalized.
Without objection, most certainly, Senator, we will journalize the the invocation today, and thank you for your service. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again back in session. Let's go ahead and see. We don't have any resolutions. Do we have introductions? Yes, recognize the Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor today to introduce our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Marianne Lamont. It is her 50th year in medicine. She started in nursing and then became a neurologist, and she started Maryland's first comprehensive stroke program, earning approval from MIMS to use helicopters to fly stroke patients for immediate treatment. And she still practices neurology at St. Agnes Hospital in Baltimore, a resident of 9B. So wonderful to have you here. Let's give her a warm Senate welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for your 50 years of service. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, Senator from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, just want to take a moment here to introduce some folks here that joined us on the floor here today. Haven't done this in the past, but I did want to take an opportunity here to recognize, most of you know my Chief of Staff, Mary Teal Medina, but we really want to recognize our legislative aide, Samantha Briggs. So Samantha joined us 3 years ago through the intern program through the General Assembly, and we were fortunate enough for the last 2 years that she has returned, and she will be leaving us this year, but we are excited for her opportunities. She's going to law school. So we wanted to take this opportunity to thank her for all that she's done for our office and for everyone here in the state of Maryland. So thank you, Samantha.
Excellent, excellent. Say congratulations and condolences on law school, a little bit of both, yes. Any further introductions? Appears not. We'll go ahead and jump into the work today. We've got a fair amount, not too much, but today will likely be a committee day, and then it gets a little bit more dynamic as the week goes along. So let's go ahead and, so we considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got messages from the House, number 5. Clerk will read the message.
Senate Bill 6, Senator Kramer, State Personnel Collective Bargaining, Non-Tenure Track, Faculty.
Majority Leader moves so we considered the reading of the bills. We've got some first reading House bills. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 45, Delegate Vogel, Labor and Employment, Mandatory Meetings on Religious or Political Matters, Employee Attendance and Participation, Rules.
All right, Majority Leader moves so we considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the Rules Committee. Let's go ahead and we've got some re-referrals. This is report number 4. Clerk will read the report.
Rules Report number 4.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules Committee met yesterday and unanimously voted to re-refer the bills on report number 4 to the appropriate standing committees.
All right, without objection, the bills on report number 4 will be re-referred to their appropriate standing committees. Let's go ahead to, let's start with, actually let's get this going. All right, we've got a Senate bill. It looks like we have a message to read. This is 18. Clerk will read the bill and the message.
Senate Bill 18, Senator M. Washington, State Board of Social Work Examiners, Provisional License to Practice Social Work, established.
All right, clerk will read the message.
By the Majority Leader, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates does not recede in the House amendments to the Senate bill and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The Senate has appointed Senator Hayes, Chairman, Senator Reedy, and Senator Lamb. The House appoints Delegate Cullison, Chair, Delegate White Holland, Delegate Riley. Said bill is returned herewith by order. Sylvia Siegert, Chief Clerk.
Message having been read is ordered journalized. Let's go ahead and let's go with finance. We'll start with finance today. We'll start with report number 40. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 246, Senator Bidel, Health Services Cost Review Commission, term of office of members, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a little conversation with my vice chair here. Sorry about
It's that time of year.
Thank you very much. Senate Bill 246 specifies that at the end of a term, a member of the Health Services Cost Review Commission may continue to serve for up to 6 months rather than until a successor is appointed and qualifies. A member who is appointed after a term has begun may serve only for the rest of the term. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 246 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 370, Senator Augustine, State Acupuncture Board revisions, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the vice chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 370 as amended updates the name of the Accreditation Committee for Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine. The bill further requires the State Acupuncture Board on renewal of license to make available proof of renewal to each licensee rather than issuing a renewal certificate. The bill also prohibits a person from employing an individual to practice acupuncture without a license and aiding and abetting the unauthorized practice of acupuncture and establishes penalties for the violation. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes from the bill language that would have defined manual therapies and altered the definition of practice acupuncture, resolving concerns related to acupressure. There is no fiscal impact. I move the amendments and adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 370 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 564, Senator Guile, State Government Office of the Attorney General, Data Protection, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the senator from the 33rd is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 564 establishes the Division of Data Protection within the Office of the Attorney General to enforce Maryland's Online Data Privacy Act, also known as MODPA, and the Maryland Age Appropriate Design Code Act. The new division must include a full-time chief counsel of data protection and other specified staff, including assistant attorneys general, investigators, and administrators. The bill also establishes the Maryland Data Privacy Implementation and Innovation Work Group staffed by the Attorney General's office to study Maryland's consumer data privacy framework and evaluate implementation issues that have arisen in specified focus areas and make recommendations for legislative or policy changes for technical clarifications or improvements while maintaining strong consumer protections. The work group must report its findings by January 1st, 2027. Amendment 1 is technical. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 564 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 782, Senator Jackson, Telecommunications Infrastructure Protections, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 782, as amended, generally prohibits a person from recklessly or willfully and maliciously defacing, damaging, or destroying telecommunication infrastructure. A violation of the bill is a misdemeanor subject to a maximum penalty of up to 6 months incarceration and or a $500 fine. The bill also provides greater specificity for the types of telecommunications equipment included in the term junk or scrap metal, and authorizes a junk dealer or scrap metal processor to accept an alternative form of documentary evidence from a seller to show that the seller has the legal authority to sell the telecommunications equipment. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the bill as described. There is no fiscal impact. The bill was voted unanimously in committee. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 782 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 808, Senator King, Health Insurance Provider Panels Requirements, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from Anne Arundel as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 808, as amended, alters the process through which healthcare providers apply to participate on a carrier's provider panel. The bill repeals authorization for a carrier to charge an application fee and alters requirements relating to updating information in a provider directory. It also alters requirements associated with designating a provider credentialing application for an online credentialing system as a uniform credentialing form and a multi-carrier common online provider directory information system for use by providers. The bill as amended is identical to House Bill 1093, which passed the House unanimously. There are 2 amendments which amend the bill as specified. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 808 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 849, Senator Gallion, Consumer Protection Agriculture Equipment Warranties, favorable 1 amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 849, as amended, conforms the bill to its House cross-file. The bill generally establishes consumer protections related to agricultural equipment by establishing a process for providing written notice to report a nonconformity, defect, or condition of the equipment. The bill also establishes numerous procedures to remedy a nonconformity, defect, or condition. A consumer who suffers a loss because of a violation of a provision of the bill may bring a civil action in court, and the court may award the consumer up to $5,000 in damages if the manufacturer is found to have acted in bad faith. The bill applies only to agricultural equipment sold on or after January 1, 2026. And a violation of the bill is an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice under the Maryland Consumer Protection Act. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 conforms the bill to its House cross-file. There is no fiscal impact. There is no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 849 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 867, Senator A. Washington, Economic Development, Maryland Aerospace and Technology Commission, alterations favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 867 is a bill that that reflects on the work of the Maryland General Assembly of passing a legislation to create the Maryland Aerospace and Technology Commission, which was tasked with developing a strategy, an economic strategy around the aerospace assets that we have here in the state of Maryland. And so recently, just last year, they developed the proposals and recommendations to the General Assembly. This bill reflects those recommendations from that commission, and the bill as amended makes various changes to the membership, purpose, staffing, and responsibilities of the Aerospace and Technology Commission within the Department of Commerce. The bill also authorizes the commission to provide grants to eligible entities for development of emerging aerospace-related technologies, research, workforce training, and development of certain local infrastructure improvements. Amendment number 1 strikes the mandated appropriation, and there was no opposition to the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report and the amendment.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 867 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 982, Senator McCray, Mutual Insurance Holding Companies, conversion to mutual insurers, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Currently, a company that is considering becoming a stock company will move into a holding company, and if they change their mind and decide they're going to stay a mutual company, there's no way for them to move back to a mutual. So what Senate Bill 982 authorizes is that a mutual insurance holding company that owns 100% of the capital stock of a reorganized stock insurer can convert its mutual insurance holding company into a mutual insurer. There are no amendments, there's no physical impact, there's no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 982 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to report of the Committee on Finance. Clerk will read the, number 41. Clerk read the first bill.
House Bill 118, Delegate Queen, Maryland Money Transmission Act, definition of money transmitter, alterations, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 118 is identical to Senate Bill 261, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. In general, the bill excludes payroll processors from the definition of money transmitter and from the requirement to get a money transmitter's license under the Maryland Money Transmission Act if the payroll processor meets certain other requirements. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 118 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 339, Delegate Simmons, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commission Chief Inspector, compensation, favorable with one amendment.
Recognized Senator from Anne Arundel as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 339, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 396 as it passed the Senate unanimously earlier this year. In general, the bill modifies the pay schedule of the full-time chief inspector employed by the Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners from non-represented pay schedule NR5 to non-represented pay schedule NR12 in the county classified salary schedule. Amendment 1 conforms the bill with its Senate cross-file. There is no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing, and I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 339 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill. Passed for third reading.
House Bill 512, Delegate Pruski, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commission and Part-Time Inspectors, compensation, favorable with one amendment.
Recognized Senator from Anne Arundel as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 512, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 401 as it passed the Senate earlier this session. In general, the bill increases the annual salaries of the chair, the members, and any part-time inspectors of the Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners. The bill also requires that the salaries include any cost of living increases available to non-represented county employees. Amendment 1 is technical. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 512 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1100, Delegate Pruski, Telecommunications Infrastructure Protections, favorable two amendments.
Recognized Senator from District 8 as floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1100, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 782. Generally, the bill prohibits a person from recklessly or willfully and maliciously defacing, damaging, or destroying telecommunications infrastructure. A violation of the bill is a misdemeanor subject to a maximum penalty of up to 6 months incarceration and/or a $500 fine. The bill also provides greater specificity for the types of telecommunications equipment included in the term junk or scrap metal and authorizes a junk dealer or scrap metal processor to accept an alternative form of documentary evidence from the seller to show that the seller has the legal authority to sell the telecommunications equipment. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the bill as described. There's no fiscal impact. The bill was passed unanimously out of committee. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader move for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1100 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1395, Delegate Jacobs, Consumer Protection Agriculture Equipment Warranties, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 37th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 1395 is the House cross-file to the bill we just heard on the previous calendar, Senate Bill 849. House Bill 1395 generally establishes consumer protections related to agricultural equipment by establishing a consumer process for providing written notice to report a nonconformity, defect, or condition of the equipment. The bill also establishes numerous procedures to remedy a nonconformity, defect, or condition. A consumer who suffers a loss because of a violation of a provision of this bill may bring a civil action in court, and the court may award the consumer up to $5,000 in damages if the manufacturer is found to have acted in bad faith. The bill applies only to agricultural equipment sold on or after January 1, 2026. And a violation of the bill is an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice under the Maryland Consumer Protection Act. There's no amendments. There's no fiscal impact. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1395 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1473, the Speaker, Economic Development, Maryland's Future Board, established, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1473 as amended is identical to Senate Bill 770, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill establishes Maryland's Future Board and related special fund within the Department of Commerce to develop a visionary plan by January 1st, 2027 that imagines an equitable, prosperous, and livable state that provides opportunities for all residents to thrive. The plan must be annually evaluated and revised. The Future Board must also recommend projects that move the state forward and contribute to ensuring the future economic strength of the state. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 confirms the bill to the Senate cross-filed. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the amendments in the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the 2 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1473 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to calendar 42 out of finance. 42. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 226, Chair, Appropriations Committee, Department of Disabilities Housing Programs, Affiliated Foundations, Establishment, favorable.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 226 is a departmental bill that requires the Maryland Department of Disabilities to oversee and administer affordable and accessible housing programs. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 226 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 278, Chair, Health Committee, Human Services, Department of Aging and Commission on Aging, the Longevity Ready Maryland Act, favorable.
Recognize Senator representing Leisure World as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 278 is the cross-file to Senate Bill 113, which passed this chamber unanimously. The bill codifies the Longevity Ready Maryland Plan, so we'll be ready for the minority leader. It requires the Secretary of Aging to lead implementation of the plan. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 278 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 746, Delegate Bagnall, Maryland Medical Assistance Program and Health Insurance Collaborative Care Model, Cost Sharing Prohibition and Coverage Requirements, favorable.
Recognize Senator from the 19th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate, this bill is the cross-file to Senate Bill 428, which passed this floor unanimously. It prohibits the Maryland Department of Health from imposing a co-payment, co-insurance, or deductible requirement on coverage for services provided in accordance with the collaborative care model. It further applies that certain insurers, nonprofit health service plans, and health maintenance organizations must provide coverage for services in accordance with the collaborative care model. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 746 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1093, Delegate Colson, Health Insurance Provider Panels Requirements, favorable.
Recognize Senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1093 alters the process through which healthcare provider panels apply to participate on carrier's provider panel. The bill repeals authorization for a carrier to charge an application fee and alters requirements relating to updating information in provider directory. It also alters requirements associated with designated provider credentialing application for an online credentialing system. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1093 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1616, Delegate Rogers, Mutual Insurance Holding Companies, conversion to mutual insurers, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1616 is in the same posture as Senate Bill 982, which we just heard on calendar 40. Mutual Insurance Holding Company that directly or indirectly owns 100% of the capital stock may convert back to a mutual insurance company. There are no amendments. There's no physical impact. There's no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1616 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to 43, calendar 43. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 372, Delegate Lopez, Hospitals, Emergency Pregnancy-Related Medical Conditions, Procedures, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from District 12 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 372 is identical to Senate Bill 169, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill generally codifies the Federal Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, EMTALA, in state law with respect to pregnancy-related medical conditions. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact. Move the option of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 372 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 374, Delegate White Holland, State Acupuncture Board revisions, favorable.
Recognizing the vice chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Similar to Senate Bill 370, updates the name of the Accreditation Commissioner for Acupuncture and the Herbal Medicine. The bill also further requires the State Acupuncture Board a renewal of a license. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill language that would have defined manual therapies. There's no fiscal impact. I move the amendment's adoption favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 374 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 446, Delegate Martinez, Health, Dementia Services and Brain Health Program Provider Resource Toolkit, favorable.
Recognize the vice chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mrs. President. House Bill 446 is nearly identical to Senate Bill 555, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The difference between the bills is stylistic and not substantive. The bill establishes the Dementia Services and Brain Health Program and the Department of Health to lead the state's public health efforts relating to brain health and dementia. By October 1st, 2027, NDH, in partnership with specified entities, must establish and maintain a provider resource toolkit for dementia care for healthcare providers. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 446 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 637, the Speaker, Public Health Recommendations for Immunizations, Screening, Preventative Services, Pharmacists, Admitted, Required Health Insurance Covered, favorable.
Recognize the senator from District 12 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 637 is identical to Senate Bill 385, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill requires the Secretary of Health to issue, publish, and distribute specified recommendations for immunizations, screenings, and preventive services. The bill also alters health insurance coverage requirements for certain immunizations, screenings, and preventive services. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact. Move to the option of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 637 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 671, Delegate Shetty, Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman, Mandatory Appropriation, favorable.
Recognize the senator from Anne Arundel as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 671 is identical to Senate Bill 340, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill requires the governor, beginning in fiscal 2027, to include in the annual budget bill an appropriation of at least $2 million to support the Office of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman in the Department of Aging. The funds are to be drawn from a specified fund that receives remittances from managed care organizations that do not meet a specified minimum loss ratio requirement in current law. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 671 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. We've got report number 44. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 769, Delegate Woods, State Board of Social Work Examiners, provisional license to practice social work, established, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 769 is amended with one exception related to the due date of a required report is identical to Senate Bill 18, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill requires the State Board of Social Worker Examiners, beginning November 1st, 2026, to issue a provisional license to an applicant who, except for passing a required examination, has otherwise met the appropriate education and experience requirements to practice bachelor social work or master social work. The amendment aligns the House bill to the Senate bill, except as noted for the required report date, by prohibiting the renewal of a provision license, prohibiting certain supervised hours from counting towards an LSCWC license, and striking an element of the annual report. I move the amendment and adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 769 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 813, Delegate Martinez, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, coverage for the treatment of obesity, authorization, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Senator from the Upper Eastern Shore is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 813, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 496, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. This bill authorizes Medicaid beginning January 1st, 2027, to provide comprehensive coverage for the treatment of obesity, including coverage for any medication approved by the FDA with an indication for chronic weight management in patients with obesity. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 conforms to the Senate bill by striking a provision requiring the Department of Health to apply to the Federal Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services for certain state plan amendment. As amended, there's no fiscal impact. I move the amendment and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 813 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1047, Delegate Hutchinson, State Board of Physicians, Delegation of Duties, alterations, favorable.
Recognizing Senator from the 37th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1047 is nearly identical to the Senate Bill 915, which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill requires an individual to be registered as a limited X-ray machine operator with the Board of Physicians to perform certain X-ray machine operations that previously could be performed without a license. The bill also recodifies provisions related to delegation of duties by a physician to a registered cardiovascular invasive specialist or a supervised medical graduate. The Senate bill was amended to increase the required training hours for a limited X-ray machine operator. The House bill keeps the number of hours the same as what it was required in current law. There are no amendments. There is no fiscal impact. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1047 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1135, Delegate Lopez, Health Occupations Pharmacist Vaccination Orders, favorable with one amendment.
Recognized Senator from District 12 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1135, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 773, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill authorizes a pharmacist to order a vaccine for an individual who is at least 3 years old without the pharmacist administering the vaccine. If the vaccine is administered to an individual younger than 18 or ordered for administration by an adult caregiver to an individual younger than 18, the pharmacist must inform the patient and adult caregiver of the importance of visits with a pediatric primary care provider and refer the patient to a pediatric primary care provider when appropriate. The amendment strikes, there are 3 amendments. The first amendment strikes provisions limiting the bill to intranasal administration. Secondly, it changes the parties authorized to administer the vaccine. And finally, it alters the information reported to Immunet. There is no fiscal impact. Move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Yep. Recognizing the senator from Carroll County.
Mr. President, I'll withdraw my not question. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1135 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1470, Delegate Collison, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Drug Dispensing, Cost of Dispensing Survey, and Fee for Service Professional Dispensing Fee, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognized senator from Carroll County is floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1470, as amended, is identical to an outstanding bill, Senate Bill 839, a bipartisan legislation which passed the Senate unanimously earlier this session. The bill requires the Department of Health, beginning in 2026, to conduct an in-state cost of dispensing survey at least once every 3 years and report the results of the survey to the General Assembly. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions requiring the department to adopt regs altering the dispensing fee based on the results of the survey and establishes the required report. I would move the amendment, the amendments, and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1470 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. I've got a budget and tax calendar here of Senate bills. This is report number 25. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 467, Senator King, Maryland Child Care Credential Program Extension of Funding, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 467 extends mandated funding for the Maryland Child Care Credential Program. There are 2 amendments. First amendment is technical. The second amendment levels the funding at $5,687,000, the same amount included in the fiscal year 2027 budget, and limits the extension to fiscal years 2028 through 2030 rather than indefinitely. I move adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 467 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 644, Senator King, Sales and Use Tax Certificates Indicating Multiple Points of Use Alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 644 alters provisions of the state sales and use tax regarding multiple points of use, MPU certificates. The bill specifies that an MPU certificate for the purchase and use of specified digital codes, digital products, and taxable data in information technology, IT services, must be deemed fully completed if the certificate contains specified identifying information about the buyer. Under the bill, a buyer is not required to obtain prior approval from the comptroller in order to present an MPU certificate to a vendor. The comptroller must relieve a vendor of the obligation to collect pay or remit the tax applicable if the vendor obtains a fully completed MPU certificate from the buyer within 90 days after the date of the sale. The comptroller must publish a specified MPU form. The bill takes effect July 1st, 2026 and applies retroactively to any retail sale or use in the state occurring on or after July 1st, 2025. There are two committee amendments. First amendment is technical. The second amendment provides for the application for and denial, renewal, and revocation of authorization for a buyer to issue multiple points of use certificates, to provide for the validity and rescission of MPU certificates, to require an authorized buyer to provide and a vendor to verify MPU certificates in a certain manner, and delay the bill's effective date. I move adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 644 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to Education, Energy, and the Environment. Start with report number 33. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 325, Delegate Guyton, Education, Professional Standards, and Teacher Education Board, composition favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 27th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 325, Education, Professional Standards, and Teacher Education Board composition. This bill alters the composition of the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board by adding an additional representative of the Maryland Association of Nonprofit Special Education Facilities. This bill also removes the requirement that one board member be a certified non-public school classroom teacher as chosen by the governor from a list of nominees provided by the Association of Independent Schools. There's no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 325 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 430, Delegate Kerr, Family Child Care Providers, Reserve Component Member, Substitute Provider, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 31st as the floor leader.
Thank you. This bill requires a family child care provider who is a member of a reserve component to designate a substitute to provide family care during the family child care provider's absence required during training and active service. The Maryland State Department of Education may establish requirements for 1, a family care provider to designate a substitute to provide family care in the family care provider's absence and the qualifications necessary to serve as a substitute. There was no opposition, no fiscal note impact, and it passed unanimously. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 430 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 661, Delegate Wolick, General Provisions, Commemorative Months, Muslim American Heritage and Jewish American Heritage Months, favorable.
Recognize the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill requires the governor to proclaim the month of January as Muslim American Heritage Month and the month of May as Jewish American Heritage Month in recognition of the contributions that both Muslims and Jewish Americans have made to the state. The proclamations must urge educational and cultural organizations to observe Muslim American Heritage Month and Jewish American Heritage Month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. There are no amendments, and I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion on the report? Recognize the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I address the floor leader, please?
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Floor Leader. As I understand it, We Are CASA had put in some testimony, and I think they had, as I understand it, they said that House Bill 661 raises the awareness of the rich cultural, historical, and social contributions that both Muslims and Jewish Americans, promoting a better understanding of their experiences, values, while promoting unity and solidarity against harmful stereotype. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. I understand that the Maryland Legislative Jewish Caucus also presented some testimony in favor of this bill, and I guess in their testimony, isn't it true that the Jewish Caucus weighed in that the MLJC mission is to further religion, diversity, and freedom?
That is correct.
There was also testimony, I believe, from a Dr. Rabbi Susan Grossman.
Correct.
She actually was very interesting what she had said in here, but she had also brought up the point where that indeed the tapestry of the diverse identities as Marylanders is one of the most precious things uniting us as nations torn by desertion and division. Is that correct?
Correct.
I understand that the Anti-Defamation League also supported this particular bill, and they noted very eloquently that at the time of rising anti-Semitism, hate, extreme across our country, including here in Maryland, the bill sends a clear message that our communities is committed to celebrating an enriching, vibrant of both Jewish and Muslim communities.
That is correct.
Thank you. And then finally, I believe there was testimony from the Institute of Islamic, Christian, and Jewish Studies, and I believe their testimony as submitted that they're an organization that holds, their mission holds that religious differences is a powerful force of good, and that they are dedicated to encouraging learning and community building with our neighbors across all religions, establishing dedicated months each year that reminds us that Marylanders of religious differences in our communities and therefore offer opportunities for learning and relationship building. They welcome and benefit the asset moving forward as they see religious differences as a force for good.
Correct.
That was their testimony. Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
On the favorable report, any further discussion? Any objections? Yes, I recognize Senator from the 26th District on the report.
Are we just on the amendment or on the report?
We don't have an amendment yet. We just have the report.
Okay, then I'll wait. I'll wait for the. We'll wait for the amendment.
Okay. On the report, any discussion on the report? Without objection, the report is adopted. Are there amendments to the bill or its title? I recognize the Senator from District 1 has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the Senator's amendment. Give us just a moment to get it onto the board, please, Senator. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment is fairly simple. Amendment number 1 adds Christian American heritage, in that the month of April as a Christian American Heritage Month. It adds to the rest of the list at House Bill 661. You know, this amendment actually furthers the strengths of the spirit of inclusivity and recognition embodied by this legislature. We all have the same principles underlying the recognition of Muslim American Heritage Month in January, Jewish American Heritage Month in May. Naming the acknowledgement of faith traditions have played a foundational role in shaping our community's institution and shared values, similar to what CASA put in testimony for. April holds a deep significance with Christian traditions. The season of Easter, culminating the celebration of the Pentecost 50 days later, commemorates the birth of the Christian church as widely regarded as the beginning of the organized Christian faith. Recognizing April as a Christian American Heritage Month reflects this pivotal moment in history and enduring the influence on American life, similar to the Jewish Caucus mission. Christian Americans have contributed extensively to the development of Marylanders in the United States in areas including education, healthcare, civil rights, and charitable services. From the establishment of the early schools and hospitals to leadership in movements for social justice, these contributions have been woven into the fabric of our state's history, similar to what Rabbi Dr. Susan Grossman testified. By including Christian American Heritage Month along with the existing designations in House Bill 661, the General Assembly will affirm its commitment to religious diversity, mutual respect, and equal recognition. In addition, it reinforces the message that Maryland values all faith traditions and seeks to promote greater understanding through education and cultural awareness, similar to what the ICJS testified on. Together, this recognizes and demonstrates that there is a unified commitment in honoring the diverse religious heritage of our citizens and fostering an environment of respect, inclusion, and shared civic pride, similar to what the Anti-Defamation League. Therefore, Mr. President, I move the amendment and ask for a roll call vote.
All right, senators, move the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, colleagues, I absolutely love the idea of a Christian American Heritage Month. However, I want to go back to the intent of the bill and explain to you why this legislation only talks about Jewish American Heritage Month and Muslim American Heritage Month. So first, we already addressed this amendment, and we addressed it in committee, and it was actually voted down. And it was voted down for a couple of reasons. Number one, this legislation is about culture, and I know the good senator referenced a lot of the testimony that referred to religion, so I'm going to talk about that first. I'm actually standing here and I'm thinking about how interesting it is that I personally am the one standing up defending this legislation. The reason why I say that is when it comes to culture and the culture of both of these religions, I actually fall within both of them. So my father, he's from Iran, and I pause for a second when I say this for a few reasons. One, it makes me a little emotional, the history and what's going on in the world right now. But number two, the culture that we celebrate at home. So when my father came here, he only came here to come to college, and he was supposed to go back to Iran. However, the revolution took place, and I know we talk about ICE a lot here on the floor. My father was actually hiding in someone's basement in Oklahoma for 6 weeks so he does not get deported by ICE at the time. He was given political asylum, and he's now here in this country. His culture, his religion is he's Jewish, but his culture is Muslim. Last night, I stopped at my parents' house to eat dinner, and I ate a Muslim dish for dinner. I could say it in Persian. It's called kharosh sabzi. So the languages that I personally am around are Farsi and Arabic. That's what's spoken around my house, not with my children, but amongst my family and my relatives. But I'm Jewish. The two religions share so much culture together and go back many, many, many years. But going back to the religious part, the intent of this bill was originally because we have seen a huge increase in bias and hate crimes towards members of both these religions. So that is not a hypothetical. Number one, there's FBI data that says it. But number two, I can tell you personally, I've seen it. My son wears a yarmulke. And when we leave the house, he knows when we go to certain stores that he's going to be walking around himself because of prior incidents that we've had. He takes it off when he walks around. Muslims, my Muslim brothers and sisters tell me all the time that many times the women are embarrassed, and not embarrassed, are afraid to wear a hijab or to wear their Muslim garb because of the increase in bias and hate crimes we've seen. The intent of this legislation, colleagues, is to combat that. The intent of this legislation is to share our cultures and show the world this is not about just promoting religion. This is about promoting our cultures, promoting where we're from, and telling the world we love each other, we care about each other. So colleagues, I ask you to please resist this amendment, just as we did in committee, and we voted it down in committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator. Recognize Senator from 26th District on the amendment.
Thank you very much. And on the amendment, let me say this to my colleagues. Christians, Muslims, and Jews, we all share from the infancy of time and religion. You read our books, you read our holy books, you read the 5 books of of the law. My Jewish brothers and sisters depend on. You read the Bible. It doesn't matter which of our books you believe. We all have about 50 or more %, and I know this as a professor of world religions. We hold this in common. I think I agree with everything that my sister across the aisle just said. But I also can find no reason to exclude Christians from this. No reason at all. I think if we're going to do this as a way to honor Christians, to honor all the major religions, we don't want to walk out here saying, gee, I voted to exclude Christians from anything that honors all major religions that we deal with. The Quran says this to us as well. At least 3 Friday nights out of the year, I go down to Muslim temple and mosque in Prince George's County on a Friday night with the men on the floor. We pray together because I think we should honor everyone's religion. And no matter what it is, you'll find some things that we all agree with. Father Fink, Rabbi Fink, who was in Baltimore when he was here in Prince George's County, we always had ecumenical services in which we lifted up the best of what we believe together. I understand maybe the intent, but I think, again, it will be a mistake for us to walk away from here and say we gave preference to any religious orientations for any reason to not include them. I think we should, and I rise in strong, strong, strong support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support of this as well. I think one thing we're losing this message is we have so much more, Mr. President, in common than against each other. I believe in this bill. I believe in heritage. I believe in strong heritage of family, but I believe in heritage also of the Muslim and Jewish American heritage. But one thing that we've founded upon is the Christian heritage in this country. And recognizing that, I believe, should be an important thing that we should do as the state of Maryland. Recognizing every one of these, I believe, are important. I think they're critical. I think they should be more emphasized because I think a lot of people don't have a great understanding of these heritage, which I believe every one of us have constituents in our communities that are vital. I support this, and I believe with this amendment, we respectfully can do a good thing in recognizing every one of these heritages. So I'll be voting green with this, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, on the amendment, I recognize the senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I oppose the amendment, frankly, for the same reason I opposed the bill in committee. We hear from this discussion this connection with religious identity, and to the point of while I am voting against the amendment sponsor, we have a number of religions. We have Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Shinto, Taoism, Jainism. And the way we have as a legislature recognizes religious practices in our holidays. So we recognize Yom Kippur, we recognize Ramadan, we recognize these as a way of honoring religious practice. We protect religious identity or the perception or the perceived or the actuality of someone's religious identity under our implementations of Title VI and any number of things, so those identities. To the extent that what we see here is that there is a conflation of religious identity and cultural identity, but in these cases it is almost impossible to separate them. The adding American, as we can see, given that there are a number of people who identify or have a religious practice, any kind of common cultural practices don't exist consistently except for the shared religious identity. I will also say that because I expressed some of these views, in committee, Mr. President, I was the subject of a alert from the Anti-Defamation League and a number of entities because I expressed these views. And so again, my views, and everyone should know my family, this is really about very clearly a line of separation of church and state, culture and heritage versus ethnic, racial identities. And so for this reason, I oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, recognized Senator from the 35th District on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just for the record, I did offer a similar amendment in committee that went down that was referred to, but it was not the same amendment. We honestly did this kind of on the fly. I didn't realize this was going to be on the voting list, and I didn't have an opportunity to get the amendment kind of printed formally before. But the amendment that I offered, kind of thrown together there on the fly, had December, and for the reasons my colleagues so thoughtfully explained, this would be April, not December. So that actually is a different amendment, similar but different. We talk about persecution. That's all religions have had to deal with that. I mean, the Christian religion, it goes back as far as Stephen, I believe, was the first one a couple thousand years ago. When we talk about culture, history, and heritage, we look at the history of our state, and we look at religious freedom. Roman Catholicism was so important as folks were coming. In Europe, you had each country had like their own state religion, and our founders were wise to realize that this should be a country that's where you can choose your religion, and you should celebrate that. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter that some people misconstrued, say, "Oh, it's in the separation of church and state is in the Constitution." Well, no. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to a church saying that there should not be a state religion. That means we shouldn't all be Presbyterians or all be Methodists or all be Catholic, whatever. So that's the truth of that. And then I also look at the culture and the heritage and the history with our American history. I look at the abolitionist movement, where it started in the North, started mainly from the churches. And then I look at more recently, 60 years ago, and our civil rights movement. We had a lot of discussion about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King on an earlier bill this session. And that movement was really started in the church. And I think in the Christian church, the Reverend Dr. King was a Christian pastor, and that's something to be celebrated. And this amendment does not take away from the other 2 months. It's additive. It's inclusive. And when you talk about those three major religions, I know I have some colleagues that they recently traveled to Israel, got to Jerusalem. That going back that far, and on that trip, you have three major religions that look at that as their holiest place in their religion, of all three. So there's a connection, honestly, with all three of these religions. I look at this as being an inclusive. If we're going to pass anything, I think we should have all three of those major religions included. So with that, Mr. President, I'd encourage a green vote on this amendment. Thank you.
All right, recognized senator from Frederick City on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to oppose this amendment. I think there's a misunderstanding as to the purpose of this amendment. Christianity constitutes about 62 to 69% of the American population who are affiliated with religion. 2% of the American population affiliate with Judaism. Little over 1% affiliate with the Muslim religion. Both Muslims and Jews, as the floor leader mentioned, have been subjected to significant discrimination, and it has been increasing. Purpose of this bill is not only to recognize that, but to educate. Let me speak a bit about education. There isn't a holiday that passes by, Easter. Numerous people with good intents wished me a happy Easter rather than Passover. During the holiday season, I'm always wished a Merry Christmas, but rarely Happy Hanukkah. This is good intent on the wisher's part, but a lack of understanding, a lack of recognition that not everyone is Christian. And so that's why I believe this bill is very appropriate. In fact, one other example, the maker of the amendment gave me a copy of the New Testament a few years ago. That's yet another example of why this amendment isn't necessary and the bill should stand as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 28th District, followed by the senator from the 23rd.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm listening to this debate and trying to figure out, how I will vote on this amendment. And, it's a really great amendment. And then I went back to say this amendment calls for April to be Christian Heritage Month. And then I go back to the Christmas holiday season and think about right after, Halloween, we start hearing all the Christmas songs, right? The first Noel, Santa Claus is coming to town, Frosty, Joy to the World. And from end of October, November, December, it's all Christmas. And how many of you get sick of all those Christmas ads and commercials and songs? I love to listen to iHeartRadio, and they make it in all Christmas songs pretty much November into December. We're saturated with it, right? It's commercial. And Christmas is a Christian holiday, and we get like 2 months of it. And so we, under this amendment, will add another month of it in April. I mean, it's overkill. I think we are looking at speaking up for these groups, the Muslim groups, Jewish groups, who are very much underrepresented, under tremendous attack. They're really wonderful members of our society, contributing members of society. And when we educate children in school about these history months, like we do African American History Month, the majority learn that we are here contributing to society, and we are performing to make America the great country that it continues to be. And so I think if we pick up this amendment, we will be kind of killing the idea behind this bill. And even though it's a great idea, me being a Christian also, but I think it's overkill, and I think we celebrate the Christian faith a lot, during the months of especially December and November. And I was going to support the amendment, and then I went through the thought process, listening to the debate. I will oppose this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, many of you know my wife. Last year, we had the opportunity to attend a Leadership Greater Washington event. And on that night, I learned how to play Mahjong. Now, that event happened at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. And 3 days later, a gunman opened fire outside the museum during a young diplomat's reception. And when my wife and I looked at that, we only looked at the TV and said, wow, we literally were just there. And the folks who were murdered, I can't pronounce their names, but they were there at an event aimed at fostering unity among Jewish young professionals and the diplomatic community. This bill is more about protection, more about understanding, more about recognizing that these people are under duress. There are things going on in this country, in this world, and we have an opportunity to protect our own. And while I am a strong Christian with strong Christian values and have strong belief in my faith, I don't believe that this bill is the place to do this amendment, and so I'll be opposing it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, recognize the senator from the 26th.
Just on the amendment, as was, number one, of everything that I've heard, I've not heard any reason at all to say our heritage as Christians should be excluded. The fact is, you either vote for all or kill the bill. Because again, you cannot, and by the way, the Santa Claus is coming to town, all that stuff, I actually love it, but it has nothing to do with Christianity. If I start singing on a Sunday morning before never mind. But the point is, there is not one legitimate, Christians suffer, Jews suffer. I preside over churches in Nigeria, and I've been back and forth there because many of our churches, they've been shot up. Parishioners killed on Sunday morning. You don't read about that in the newspapers here, but it is a fact. The question appears to, for me, it is, should we honor some? Should we honor none? And if we're going to do it, there is no biblical, cultural, because we have culture as well. There is no biblical, no theological, no cultural reason to say we're going to vote to exclude Christians from this bill. And so I urge you to think about it, rethink it. And what will we say? Oh, we did it because we thought one should have been included over another. No, I think that that's not the message. Either in this bill, you put those who are asking to be in the bill, or just outright send the bill back to be looked at and done again. All of us, and for anyone to say the reason it's different, it's because you're Christians, it's because, that's absolutely wrong. It should be all or none. And that's what I'm asking my colleagues to vote for. Thank you.
All right. On the, is there any senator who have not yet spoken who wishes to speak? If not, recognize the maker of the amendment. On the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the amendment, we've heard some debate back and forth. Colleagues, let's just bring this right back to what this is about. This is about celebrating Jewish heritage, Muslim heritage, and the amendment adds Christian heritage. We've heard about groups being targeted, which is 100% wrong. Across the world, people are targeted for their religion. It is wrong. But it is equally, as we as a body are to be about unity, as we as a body that are about to give voices to all. It may be the majority religion, but that doesn't mean that their heritage does not get included. As the official commemorative days and months in Maryland, as you'll find in your fiscal note, in it is Caribbean Heritage Month, German American Heritage Month, American Indian Heritage. So as you are to vote, remember that this bill is about the heritage contributing to the state of Maryland and the United States in which we live in. This is not pitting religions against religions. I state my reputation. I was born and raised in Montgomery County. I did not get raised by some only Christian faith. I have respect for both the Muslim and Jewish faith. This is not in any way slander or any way against them, which I believe some of the testimony that was just given portrayed it as. I ask that you put a green vote on this bill, or for this amendment, and with that, Mr. President, I ask for a roll call vote.
All right, any further discussion? Yes, recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to touch back on what the good senator just mentioned. Number one, I stand corrected. The amendment in committee was about December and not April. So I stand corrected on that. However, the intent was different. But I ask my colleagues once again to please resist this amendment, and please do not take from the intent of this legislation. Again, the intent of this legislation, it began because of the increase in hate crimes and the bias towards these two religions. And yes, the senator just mentioned that there are three religions, and everyone has hate against them. However, the two religions mentioned in this legislation, they are minority religions in the United States of America, and yet they are seeing the majority of the hate crimes against them. So I ask my colleagues to please resist this amendment, and please don't take from the important intent of this, and please vote red. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, recognized senator from the 19th District on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, I very much appreciate all of the discussion that we have had on the floor this morning with regard to this particular legislation. And I certainly understand the context and the emotions that come along with legislation of this kind. I think it is important for us not to lose track of the intended purposes of bills like the one before us that create heritage months. These bills are generally about highlighting the contributions and the experiences of groups that have been historically marginalized, underrepresented, and very often subject to discrimination in public life. In this beautiful nation of ours, Christianity has in fact long been the majority religion and is very much and deeply embedded in our culture. That's just the reality. By contrast, Judaism and Islam are very small, as was represented by our colleague from Frederick, as a part of our population. And the goal here is not that we are looking to create all religions identically, but the goal here is to offer, in my mind, a little bit of equity and visibility to those cultures that, again, have been very much subjected to bias and hate, which is what we are experiencing at a significantly higher level in our country at this point in time. I don't think any of this is intended to diminish at all the value of our Christian sisters and brothers here in Maryland and across our nation. The goal is simply to provide an opportunity for greater outreach, education, and understanding about very small minority cultures, and to recognize their contributions to this state and to our nation, and in no way diminish the value of our brothers and sisters in what is overwhelmingly the majority culture in this country. And for that reason, I would simply ask that we pass this legislation without any amendments so that we are doing as was intended with these Heritage Months. Let's recognize the contributions of the small minority cultures in our country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the amendment, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote.
Mr. President?
Yes,
explain my
Senator
vote.
from District 1 has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you very much. I rise today to explain my vote that this amendment before us simply adds the recognition that Christian American heritage alongside the existing designations in this legislation. Let me be clear from the outset. I support the underlying bill because it recognizes the rich contributions that Muslim Americans and Jewish Americans in our state is appropriate, meaningful, and long overdue. These communities have shaped our economy, our culture, and our civic life in countless ways. But the purpose of this legislation is to celebrate the diverse faith traditions that have contributed to our state and nation. Then we should strive to do so that is inclusive and complete. This amendment is not diminishing anyone else's recognition. It's about ensuring that we as a body choose to highlight heritage and contributions, that we do so fairly and inclusively. We don't pick one or choose a faith tradition that is worthy of recognition when all have contributed to the fabric of our society. I feel at this time in our country, when we can feel divided, this amendment is just an opportunity to bring people together, to say that we see each one, we respect one another, and we value all contributions of all. We value all contributions of all. I urge a green vote on this amendment because this bill reflects.
The Senator's time has expired.
Excellent. Thank you. The full spirit of inclusion.
Recognize the Minority Whip has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rising just to explain my green vote. Some of the commentary on the floor, I think, illustrates the need for a Christian Heritage Month, because I think some folks are confused about maybe some of what it means versus what some of the trappings of different holidays and even some of the things that we debate about are. I support this because when you add in one major religious group, and then you really need to be sure you're recognizing, I think, all three of the major religious groups that are represented in our state. It's interesting, as you read through the list, and I believe my colleague from District 1, the maker of the amendment, read through the list of different heritage days that we have, or heritage months. This is breaking new ground. We've never had religious groups recognized. Now, Jewish Americans, that is a nationality, that's a race or a nationality or an ethnic origin. Muslim is not. Christian is not. Obviously, somebody can convert to Judaism, of course, as a part of their faith. But Jewish, I understand we have, much like we have month holidays for some other nationality and ethnic minorities. So I could understand that. But when we add in Muslim, I'm okay with that. We should add in Christian. Maryland was founded as a Catholic refuge where religious freedom was paramount, and we were a state that led the way, too late, but led the way to make sure that Jewish Marylanders could have full representation. So we have this great heritage, but most people don't seem to know it. So I think it would have been a great way to get real unanimous support for this bill. But my vote is green on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 26th District on his 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Yes, to explain my vote. And lastly, it could be looked at two different ways. One could say, well, they can walk out and say, well, here's something else to separate and to give religion something else to be divided over. That's one thing that could be said. The other is, because I respect all religions, it should be either for all religions. I don't care how large they are, how small they are, where our differences are. But we don't just celebrate people because they have been persecuted. We celebrate them because of what they've contributed to society and to the lives of people. That's why we honor. And I just think it's kind of embarrassing, and it's kind of a slap in the face to say that anyone's heritage, when it comes to religion, should be based solely on who's being persecuted. It all depends on where you live in this world. But it really lifts up what we think about and how proud we are of our religious orientation, of our culture. This is probably one of the few times you've heard me get up on the floor 3 times, and probably one of a few times on amendments you ever heard me agree with my brother on minority leader on that side. But this crosses all barriers. And it's a slippery slope to go down. If we're going to take out one, then there's another that will be taken out. Then there's, how many bills can we have? We either honor all or we honor none. I strongly urge a green vote on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Recognize the Vice Chair Budget and Tax. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you very much. The only reason I'm getting up is I have great respect for the proponents of this amendment. I have great respect for their motivation. And I'm a Christian. I get it. I get that we're a majority in this country. And I get that Christians have been persecuted over the centuries. The reason I vote against this amendment, it is not that having a Christian Heritage Month may not be a good idea and may be a good idea for a bill in a future year. But this amendment is not about all or none. You may recall that last Monday, the invocation was given by folks from the Hindu temple in Beltsville. 1% of Marylanders are Hindu. They're not in this amendment. Sikhs are not in this amendment. Buddhists are not in this amendment. This is about 2 specific heritage groups. Should be recognized, others should be, but this is not the bill in which to do it. That's why I voted against the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize the Senator from District 6. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the maker of this bill. Thank you very much for doing this, because going to Israel, the time that I had, and meeting the people there, I have more of a love than I've ever had before for them. And I know the persecution that they have gone through, words will never express the sorrow that I have for those that have lost their lives. It's heartbreaking, the continuation of what people continue to go through because of who they are, or even what they believe in. That breaks my heart. That should not be going on. We should have respect for each other. We should have respect in a way that we shouldn't go through things that we are going through as a world or as a nation or as a state. But just having the opportunity to bring the Christian heritage is a compliment to that as well, I believe. I believe it's just a compliment. But I appreciate every person here and what they've said. Because you know what, Mr. President? I believe it came from their heart. And so I thank you for the opportunity to just get up here and just tell you, I believe this is a good amendment. I believe this is a good thing. But overall, it's a good bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? Recognize the Vice Chair of Finance. 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm struggling with this bill. I don't even think that we should be voting on this bill. You know, just 2 days after our Holy Week, and all that we have to consider, to have yet some other thing that's before us that has created such division. We've been debating this for probably more than an hour now. And I'm struggling really, really hard. I know when I was in the House and we had these commemorative bills, we often paused and didn't pass them because we thought that, we should be focusing on legislation. I understand the symbolism behind it. I understand the people behind it, but I just have a serious problem with the process that we are in the final days of this legislative session, committing so much time and energy to something that I think creates even more division. It has people walking away. I remember earlier this session, one of the ministers gave a prayer and they mentioned the word Lord, and one of our colleagues said that person should be banned for forever to present here today. I think issues of religion are personal, and in government bodies, they shouldn't be used as yet another tool to divide us. And so I struggle, Mr. President. I don't have a vote up there. I don't know what my vote's going to be. I'm praying on it, but I just think I don't think that we should be put in this position.
All right, Recognized Senator from District 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's probably not a surprise to many of you, but I may struggle with my own beliefs from experiences. But my good friend from Prince George's County always tries to bring me in because I know he'll always throw a prayer out for me, and I've attended his services, and they're very inspirational. But if we're going to talk about all these other religious beliefs or these, why wouldn't we make this the vessel to include all of them? I hear people talking about that we haven't included them, that we're only doing 2. You know, I'm of the mindset of if you're going to include 2, why not include all of them and have the designations? Or, like my other good friend from Baltimore County said, separation of church and state, have none. That's your options, in my opinion. Include them all. This body is inclusive. We're very diverse. We have different beliefs. Include them all, or do it by the words from my good friend from Baltimore, separation of church and state, do none. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 26 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Question is on, or excuse me, are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Recognize the senator from the 26th district.
I don't know if this is the correct time, but I want to lay the bill over for an amendment. So at what point? It's a special order for an.
Senators move to special order the bill. Let's check on the motion. On the motion till tomorrow, I presume, is what the recognize the floor leader. Recognize the chair of the committee on the motion.
Mr. President, could if I might. Okay, this is a House bill. It can be amended on third reader, and therefore I would resist special order. I would say if there's an amendment to be discussed, we could easily do it on third reader and not take too much more time on the second reader on the issue. But I think, again, it's a House bill, so it can be amended on third reader. So for that reason, I'd resist special order.
All right. Can we resist this special order? Yes, I recognize Senator from District 1 on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I resist. I would rather it just be laid over with inclusiveness and harmony, trying to not amend this on third reader. I understand, but I'm articulating why I do feel that, okay, special order for this bill, please. Support for special order of this bill.
All right,
Thank you.
question remains on the special order. All in favor of the special order say aye. Opposed, nay. Noes have it. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 661 is your right order passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 748, Delegate Miracoot North, publicly funded pre-kindergarten early childhood education career ladder for private providers, new pathways, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 23rd district as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, a bill that's guaranteed to take less than 2 minutes. This bill removed fixed statutory deadlines for meeting certain experiential and educational qualification requirements to qualify for the early childhood educator career ladder for specified eligible private pre-K providers, and instead establishes a relative and ongoing time frame for meeting those requirements. Specifically, the bill creates a third pathway for early childhood teaching assistants to qualify by holding a high school diploma and earning required credentials within 3 months after being hired, rather than by July 1st, 2027. For lead teachers who qualify through the 10-year experience pathways, there is a 2-tiered deadline for earning a required associate degree in early childhood education. A teacher who qualifies through the experience pathway on or before July 1st, 2024 must earn the degree on or before July 1st, 2030. A teacher who qualified through the experience pathways after July 1st, 2024 must earn the degree within 6 months after qualifying as a lead teacher. There are no committee amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 748 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 845, Wacomico County Delegation, Higher Education, Student Financial Assistance Alterations to Scholarship Programs, favorable with one amendment.
Recognized Senator from the 38th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues and pages, this is a great student financial assistance scholarship bill. And this bill extends eligibility for the Maryland Community College Promise Scholarship to residents of Del Mar, Maryland, who graduate from Del Mar High School in Delaware. This bill also renames the Fallen Transportation Workers Scholarship Program to the Fallen and Surviving Transportation Workers Scholarship Program. It alters the eligibility requirements of the program to include surviving transportation workers as defined and specified family members of surviving transportation workers. A scholarship awarded under the program may be used for the total cost of attendance at any institution of post-secondary education. Specified entities that employed a surviving transportation worker must provide the Maryland Higher Education Committee with the names and contact information for surviving transportation workers after any accident resulting in to be eligible for the scholarship. There's one amendment. This amendment adds financial dependency provisions for unmarried partners and strikes the provisions extending eligibility to the sibling of certain surviving transportation workers. And I move adoption on this one committee amendment and a favorable committee report for HB 845.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 845 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 936, Montgomery County Delegation, Montgomery County Public Schools, Local Food Procurement, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 936 is a local Montgomery County bill that requires by September 1, 2027, Montgomery County Public Schools shall identify the dollar amounts of food procured for school meals in the 2026-2027 school year from certified local farms and certified Chesapeake invasive species providers, and publish the data on the school system's website. Using the data for the 2026-27 school year as a baseline, MCPS must set target increases for the dollar amount of food procured from certified local farms, et cetera. And MCPS, in coordination with Montgomery County Office of Food Systems, Resilience, and Public Schools, must establish a plan to meet the target increases. Mr. President, there is one amendment. It alters the short title of the bill to include the name Jane E. Lawton Local Food Procurement. That is the amendment, Mr. President. With that, I'd move the adoption and the one committee amendment, the one committee amendment, and the favorable committee report on House Bill 936. Thank you, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 936 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1083, Montgomery County Delegation, Montgomery County Board of Elections, membership favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is a local Montgomery County bill related to our County Board of Elections. Rather than 5 regular members and 2 substitute, it just makes them all regular members. In our enormous county, we often need presence at various polls, and this gives them all the same dignity and access. It would stay the same party split, 4 from the majority, 3 from the minority party, and has the governor fill any vacancies from the regular party. The same party. There is one committee amendment, and that simply changes the date of effectiveness, which is important. It's June 1 of this year, so that it will apply for this primary election. Move adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1083 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to, we have a special order calendar number 65. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 839, Frederick County Delegation, Frederick Community College Board of Trustees Meeting and Training Requirements. Question is the adoption of the one amendment offered from the floor by Senator Lewis Young.
Question is on the floor amendment. Recognize the Senator from Frederick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm withdrawing the amendment.
Okay, amendment has been withdrawn. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 839 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to, still with Education, Energy, and the Environment. That got out of order. Let's do report number 34. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 235, Chair, Economic Matters Committee, Housing and Community Development, Neighborhood Business Development Program, Local Approval Requirement, favorable.
Recognize Senator from District 10 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, HB 235 is the departmental bill from the Department of Housing and Community Development. The bill shortens the local review period for financial assistance applications under the Neighborhood Business Development Program from 45 days to 15. There are no committee amendments. There's no fiscal impact. The bill passed the committee unanimously. I move the favorable committee report and the bill.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion, any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 235 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 240, Chair, Economic Matters Committee, Local Comprehensive Plan, Guidance Materials, Notifications, Department of Planning, favorable.
Recognize Senator from the 27th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 240 is a departmental bill for the Maryland Department of Planning. The bill requires each planning commission statewide to notify the Maryland Department of Planning when beginning a review of its local area's comprehensive plan at least once every 10 years. The bill then requires the Maryland Department of Planning to provide the Planning Commission with guidance material related to state laws, best practices for local comprehensive plans, and any other resources that may support the review, revision, or amendments of the comprehensive plan. There are no committee amendments. There's no fiscal impact. The bill passed committee unanimously. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 240 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 342, Delegate Baylor, Forestry Licenses, Applicant Qualifications, Alterations, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the Senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 342 alters the educational qualifications for an applicant for a forestry license from the State Board of Foresters. Under the bill, the applicant must have graduated from a college or university that 1 is approved by the board and 2 accredited by the Society of American Foresters. An applicant must also satisfy educational requirements for licensure if the board determines that the applicant's education is substantially equivalent to statutory requirements. There are 2 committee amendments. The first amendment is technical. Second amendment restores current experiential qualifications for licensed applicants, which the House had accidentally struck previously. I'd like to move the 2 committee amendments and ask for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 342 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 451, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, Maryland Zero Emission Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council membership duties and sunset repeal. Favorable 1 amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 23rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 451 repeals the termination date for the Maryland Zero Emission Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council, thereby establishing the council as a permanent entity. The bill also alters the membership and duties of the council and makes permanent an annual reporting requirement. There is 1 committee amendment. The amendment restores representation by the fuel cell electric vehicle industry to the council membership. There is no fiscal impact. I move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, recognize the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the floor leader could yield for a question, please.
Senator may proceed.
Is he ready? Oh, okay. Mr. Floor leader, the report that comes out from this commission is that our council is actually pretty extensive. I've looked over a number of the reports, but do you know if these reports are delivered to, for instance, the EEE or maybe E&T committees for their evaluation?
Not currently, as I understand it.
They're not currently. So in providing all of this information, and I guess the purpose of this bill is to eliminate the sunset repeal, is the intention that these reports are then utilized for policy making, or is it just kind of state of the industry for electric vehicle infrastructure?
So the annual reports will go to the governor. They will go to the governor for potential policy making decisions down the road.
Okay. Because in the last report, there's a lot of information, and I know we've had a lot of discussion about energy over the last few days, but a lot of comments, and again, a big part of this report has to do with the work being done by the Public Service Commission and the EV pilot program. We've all been very concerned about the costs that our utilities are charging our constituents, and these seem to be, again, programs that the utility companies are running or being asked to run by the Public Service Commission. Was there any discussion about any of this at all during the bill hearings, or was it simply just to eliminate the sunset?
No, as you can imagine, there appears to be a lot of redundancy because energy is so massive and huge. Right. But in fact, by extending this, we're also going to be identifying barriers and challenges, developing recommendations and policies, establishing performance measures for meeting zero emission electric vehicle related use, and a variety of other things that I think we really need to ensure the efficacy of what we're doing with all of our energy bills.
Okay, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I just, again, am looking at the extent of the report and what we're doing with these reports. Obviously, we do a lot of work groups around here. We do a lot of summer studies and task force, and this council, like I said, has put together some very extensive reports, but it's just interesting to see them reporting back on what the Public Service Commission is doing. And I'm just hoping at some time, that the committees that deal with the energy policy are evaluating this as well, and recognizing that, again, through policy, we've asked the Public Service Commission to initiate a number of pilot programs that are, in fact, costing ratepayers money, and hope that as we continue to get this report, now that the sunset is repealed, that the committees will continue to evaluate that as we go forward making policy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question remains on the one amendment. Recognize the senator from the 37th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to follow up on that
Senator, may
dialogue
proceed.
and ask the floor leader a couple questions. So with this report in discussing the bill and repealing the sunset, was there any discussion of a cost analysis?
Are you talking about just the regular fiscal impact or something else?
Yeah, as they're doing a report on the zero emission electric vehicle infrastructure, is there any assessment for the cost? What is the cost? Or is it, I haven't had the opportunity to review the reports, but do we know what the cost of that infrastructure, is there anything mentioned, or is there any reference, I was going through the fiscal report and it talked about what the duties of the council are, and nothing in there talks about the cost. And I was wondering, in anywhere in that council, are they charged with assessing the cost of implementing these different policies?
Right. So there's no fiscal impact with respect to this bill. No fiscal impact.
Yeah, there's no fiscal impact with the bill. Yeah. And the question is, though, about the council and their duties. And the question was not about the cost of the bill. It was a question of whether the council has any, if any of their duties include assessing a cost for the zero emission electric vehicle infrastructure.
Yeah, I think I understand your question, but we're just trying to figure out how to implement what we already have in place and ensure we have enough time to do the due diligence to do that.
If we wanted to offer an amendment, would there be time to lay the bill over or special order the bill? Would that be possible?
Senator, certainly open to making the motion. Check with the.
The bill can be amended on third reader. It's a House bill.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. On the amendment, on the committee amendment, any objections to the committee amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Question on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 451 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 663, Delegate Rosenberg, Department of the Environment, Federal Environmental Policy, reporting favorable.
Recognize the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of reporting, this is so that that we learn about the new policies coming out of the federal agencies. This requires once every 6 months for the Maryland Department of the Environment to send us a report going back to any changes that were made on January 1st of 2024 that have been found legally allowed through May 31st of 2029. That can be done within the current fiscal current fiscal capacity, and there were no amendments. The first report is due this July 1st. The bill would go into effect June 1st. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Recognize the minority whip on the report.
Mr. President, I have some couple questions on if I could ask the floor leader.
Will the floor yield? Senator may proceed.
Sure.
Thank you. Looking through this, and first of all, we're looking at, it looks to me like the report is on some of the greenhouse gas related changes that may or may not be happening at the federal level. There's a number of regulatory and deregulatory things taking place at the EPA. They abolished several rules that turns out Congress was supposed to approve and didn't, and they just kept operating as a rule. And there's some other things going on. This list is pretty short. I feel like there's some other items we would want to keep an eye on. Was there any discussion in the committee about why just focused on the cars and greenhouse gas, or I don't know if there's any discussion.
I think it was the committee's belief that these were the key environmental issues that are coming out of the federal level and what actions the state may be taking, or actions that we might want to consider taking.
My curiosity is, we ought to be evaluating, if we're going to start getting into evaluating things the federal government is doing, which, I mean, it's good to keep an eye on, always, and any state should do that. And actually, I think it's good that we're getting, maybe get to a point where we get less and less federal involvement in a number of things. But environmental issues obviously run across state lines, so it's an important federal role there. Was there any consideration, or was there any discussion about looking at things the federal government's doing to stimulate more growth in clean energy?
I don't remember that being discussed in committee.
Okay. And I guess my last question is, this report looks like it ends in 2029. Seems like it ought to be something that goes on longer. So why did we end it in May of 2029?
This is the bill the House sent us, and it seemed like a good place for us to start. We could certainly revisit. We'd have many years for the General Assembly to look at it, see whether the reports were providing value added, see whether the Maryland Department of the Environment found it too onerous, too burdensome, and whether then it should be extended.
Actually, it's interesting. And in some ways, I'd love to see a report go on for a while, and in other ways, we may be having to make some serious cuts in personnel with the state budget in the next year or two. So we probably do need to be careful about that. All right, Mr. President, thank you so much for the answers. Mr. President, I'm preparing an amendment. I'd like to special order for the first session tomorrow.
Any objections to the senator's motion? No objections. Without objection, we will special order the bill to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 784, Delegate D. Jones, aquaculture, placement of shellfish, bags, nets, and structures on submerged aquatic vegetation, extension favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 38th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this is an aquaculture bill. House Bill 784 extends from June 30th, 2027 to June 30th, 2030, the termination date of a law allowing an aquaculture leaseholder to place shellfish, bags, nets, or structures on submerged aquatic vegetation with specified prior written approval from the Department of Natural Resources. There are no committee amendments. The bill passed the committee unanimously. Move for a favorable report on HB 784.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 784 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 925, Delegate Stein, sewage, sludge, per, and polyfluoroalkyl substances regulation favorable.
Well done. All right, practice that one. 925. Recognize Senator from District 9 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 925 is nearly identical to Senate Bill 719, which passed the Senate unanimously. The bill establishes prohibitions and restrictions related to the land application of sewage sludge that has a total concentration of regulated PFAS equal to or greater than specified levels. The bill also establishes related requirements for the Maryland Department of the Environmental and Sewage Sludge Generators. The only difference between the bill and Senate Bill 719 as it passed the Senate relates to the timeline for using mass balance calculations to determine PFAS levels in a commingled materials. There are no committee amendments. The bill passed the committee unanimously. I move the favorable committee report.
All right. Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Recognize Senator from the 29th District.
On the report?
On the report. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to see a bill here on the topic of PFAS. This has been and remains to be an important issue for health and safety of our Marylanders, especially our firefighters and our first responders. Many of you all will remember that 4 years ago, I stood on this floor and supported legislation also on the topic of PFAS. We passed a bill called the George Walter Taylor. He was a firefighter from my district who passed away from cancer that he got and was linked to PFAS. As part of that bill, we banned the use, manufacture, the sale of firefighting foam that contained intentionally added PFAS chemicals. We knew that our fire departments all over the state possess this foam. And so to ensure that no more of our firefighters were exposed to this harmful chemical, we required that on the request of the fire departments in the state of Maryland, the Department of the Environment shall take back from the fire departments the Class B firefighting foam that contains this intentionally harmful added PFAS chemicals. So this session, I heard from one of my local fire departments that they have made multiple attempts to arrange for MDE to take back the supply of this banned foam that is currently in their possession. And they were reaching out to our office because they were asking, how can we properly dispose of this dangerous foam that was determined to the state to cause cancer? Because it could be harmful to the public. And we did this 4 years ago. So I sent a letter to MDE asking for guidance. And then I could provide that to our fire department, as well as an update on their progress in carrying out their legal required duty to take back and dispose of this foam. Not to mention the fact, colleagues, that we gave them money to do this. I have yet to receive a reply. We passed legislation like the George Walter Taylor Act and like this bill to protect our constituents with the understanding that MDE will carry out their duties under the law. To not receive a timely reply on such a serious matter has been incredibly disappointing. And while I will be supporting this bill, I hope that MDE will do a better job carrying out their duties under the laws of the state as this pertains to a dangerous PFAS. Colleagues, I urge each of you to reach out to your local fire departments and see how much of this deadly foam they have and they're holding based on the lack of support from MDE. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the report, any further discussion? Certainly we hope MDE responds particularly after the noting on the floor. So, any further discussion of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 925 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, we're going to keep pushing through a little bit longer. We're just doing one session today, so probably another half hour or so. We'll see where we can get. We have a consent calendar out of Triple E. This is report number 35. Clerk, read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Education, Energy, and the Environment, report number 35, consent calendar number 14.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bills on this consent calendar are all identical cross files of bills that passed the Senate earlier this session. They deal generally with business occupations and regulations, state and local government, and information technology. There are no amendments. I move adoption of the favorable committee report on the bills on consent calendar number 14, Mr. President.
All right, the Chair of the Committee moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report for all bills on consent calendar number 14. Are there any bills that senators wish to take up independently or to separate from the calendar? If not, on the report, any objections to the adoption of the report? Without objection, the report is adopted, and House bills on calendar 35, consent 14 are hereby ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to judicial proceedings. This is report number 22. Clerk, read the first bill.
House Bill 17, Delegate Cardin, Estates and Trust, Venue for Administration and Judicial Probate, and Application of Inheritance Tax, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 17 is the cross-file of Senate Bill 277, which we passed unanimously on this floor several weeks ago. The bill modifies and expands the basis upon which a determination can be made that a given county is the proper venue for administrative or judicial probate of the estate of a deceased person who was not domiciled in the United States. There's a single amendment which is technical and conforms the bill to the Senate bill. I hereby move the adoption of the amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 17 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 153, Delegate Lehman, residential rental apartments air conditioning requirement, favorable one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you once again, Mr. President. House Bill 153 is the cross-file of Senate Bill 12, which was passed on this floor on March 19th. The bill, as amended, requires a landlord of residential rental units and apartment buildings with 10 or more individual dwelling units to provide air conditioning, reducing the temperature to not over 80 degrees. Unless otherwise exempted by the bill, landlords are to provide air conditioning in residential rental units beginning June 1st of this year for newly constructed units and beginning October 1st of this year for existing units that undergo the replacement or substantial upgrade of electrical systems or heating systems. There's one amendment that conforms the House bill to the bill which we passed. I hereby move the adoption of the amendment as well as the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Yes, recognize the senator from Baltimore County on the report.
Thank you very much. If the gentleman would yield.
The senator yield.
Sure.
Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Is this your last floor report?
No, got one more.
Got one more. All right. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. All right. On the recognize the minority leader on the.
Thank you very much. Question for the floor leader, please.
Question for the floor leader. Senator may proceed.
Since it's not his last report. There was unfavorable testimony from the realtors that talked about how to measure and prove a unit is meeting the performance requirements that you mentioned, 30
Yes, I think I got
degrees.
the same question on the Senate bill.
Yeah.
And the answer is, last year when this bill was introduced, it referred to a national standard adopted by a national organization. The realtors were very much opposed to that. The bill didn't make it past the finish line last year. This year's bill abandoned that standard. The temperature is simply measured by a simple household thermometer, 80 degrees. Very simple to measure.
80 degrees at 3 foot above floor level
Yeah, yeah.
is not generally where you have a thermostat located. In fact, there's building standards that require thermostats to be much higher. So
No, I didn't say thermostat, I said thermometer. You can put a thermometer in the room, hold it 3 feet above the floor, and determine whether it's 80 degrees or higher than 80 degrees. If it is, you're not in compliance with the bill. If it's 80 degrees or lower, you're in compliance with the bill.
Okay, so a thermostat will be the one that controls the HVAC unit, and you would set a temperature on that, would operate based on that, but then you're saying that test requirement is that a leasee would then
Sure. If
say I've got a thermostat in my house and it's at 3 feet and it's more than 80 degrees.
Sure.
Then
If
what
the
happens?
tenant puts the thermostat down as low as it will go, and then complains that it's too hot, the person testing whether or not the landlord is complying with the law can come in and have a thermometer and set it on a table and wait a while and then look at the thermometer to see if the temperature in the room is above or below 80 degrees.
And then what's the next step between the landlord and tenant relationship? What happens next?
I mean, what's the penalty if in case the temperature is higher than 80 degrees?
On that particular day?
Give me a moment.
It could be any day, right?
The bill says for an air conditioning system that's under the control of the tenant, the landlord shall ensure that the air conditioning system is in good working order and is capable of maintaining the temperature in the unit at not greater than 80 degrees Fahrenheit at 3 feet above the floor level in each habitable space in the unit. It's part of an existing statute. I don't have the statute with me. If you'd like, I can special order it, the bill, and I'll get the statute and tell you what the penalty is.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, let's
Thank
do
you,
that.
Mr. President.
All right. Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk, read the next bill.
Mr.
House Bill 216.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Senator from Prince George's.
Could you, Chairman? let me cite for you what is going on, what was going on in one of the apartment complexes in my district.
Oh, Senator, just very briefly, we're going to take this one back up tomorrow.
Okay,
We
thank
special
you.
order. We'll take it up
Thank you.
tomorrow for the debate tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 216, Delegate Kaufman, Criminal Law Benefits Exploitation, favorable.
Recognize Senator from the 42nd as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the third time in a row. House Bill 216 prohibits a person from committing the crime of government benefits exploitation through either undue influence or harassment or devices or false representations or pretense for personal profit or advantage or for the personal profit or advantage of another. The bill establishes graduated penalties based on the aggregate value of the government benefits involved. There was one committee amendment which merely struck the phrase "or any other means." Other than that, there were no committee amendments. The vote of the committee was unanimous. I hereby move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was no amendment.
Thank you.
So I just moved the adoption of the favorable committee report.
On the report. All right. On the report. Any discussion of the report? Yes, recognize Senator from the 28th.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Question for the
Senator
floor
McKee.
leader.
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. So what's the reason behind this bill, and what's the behavior we're trying to regulate?
Sure. There is an unfortunate situation that occurs with increasing frequency where friends or relatives or even children or grandchildren of an elderly person essentially take the person captive and keep the person in that person's house and get the benefits that are provided to that person, Social Security and other governmental benefits, and then use those benefits for themselves or for other people, and not for the benefit of the elderly person. So this, we're not only talking about elderly people, we're also talking about disabled and handicapped people. So this bill makes it a crime to exploit those people by taking their benefits and not using them for the benefit of the person, but instead using it for the benefit of someone else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sure.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Question remains on the favorable report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 216 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 284, Chair, Judiciary Committee, Public Safety License Firearm Dealers, Notification Regarding Compromising Events, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 16th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as amended, this departmental bill requires a licensed firearm dealer to notify the Secretary of State Police within 24 hours after the dealer first has knowledge that 1, there has been a burglary, attempted burglary, robbery, or theft involving a firearm or ammunition at the premises on which the licensed dealer operates or where the firearms are stored, or 2, a required security feature has been compromised as specified. The required notice is in addition to any report made to the local law enforcement agency or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The bill also alters existing penalties that apply to the failure to meet the required security features. As amended, this bill is identical to SB 160, which we passed earlier this session. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters the penalty provisions to conform to SB 160 as previously passed by the Senate. Move the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 284 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 474, Delegate Patterson, Vehicle Laws, Dangerous Accumulation of Snow and Ice Removal from Exposed Vehicle Surfaces, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 44th District as the floor leader.
Thank you very much. This bill is substantively identical to its cross-file Senate Bill 698, which passed the Senate 45-0. The only difference between the bills is that this bill is titled the Clear Before You Drive Act. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. It prohibits a person from operating or towing a vehicle without first making reasonable efforts to remove any accumulated snow or ice that poses a threat to a personal property from exposed vehicles surfaces. There were no committee amendments. I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 474 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 483, Delegate Wolick, Business Regulation, Charitable Organizations, Audit and Review Thresholds, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 16th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill increases the minimum gross income amounts from charitable contributions above which a charitable organization must include a certain audit or review with a registration statement. The bill increases the threshold for an audit from $750,000 to $1 million and for a review from $300,000 to $400,000. The bill further authorizes the Secretary of State to accept certain documentation in place of an audit or a review in connection with a charitable organization's registration statement if the charitable contributions do not exceed $400,000 and amount to 20% or less of the total gross income. It's a straight favorable. We passed the cross-file unanimously off this floor. Move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report.
President.
Recognize the minority whip on the report.
Would ask the floor leader to yield for question.
Floor leader yield. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, and I know we did vote for this bill when it passed in the Senate. My question is, just looking at it, and there was opposition in the House too, which is interesting. I think we've had a number of things in the press about nonprofits and whether the Moore administration can properly tell us how many state dollars are spent or how much state money is spent with nonprofits. So I think the natural instinct perhaps from some would be to be concerned about a bill that's now taking auditing away. But my understanding about this, because I've had people, including CPAs, talk to me from my district, is that there are reports that are required for just any nonprofit, and the current levels are pretty low relative to what a nonprofit brings in. So I guess my question is to ask, this is not like if a nonprofit is getting state funds, this has nothing to do with whether that nonprofit could eventually be questioned about what they're doing with state funds, correct?
Correct.
Because we've got a mechanism we're going to have. And I know that the floor leader is not on the budget committee, and neither am I. But there's budget language that was agreed upon that now nonprofits that receive state funds are going to be subject to auditing. This bill would not affect that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the support for the bill is it's just trying to modernize the amounts so that we don't have. What audit are we telling them they don't have to fill out, I guess is my question, if under these thresholds?
So we're not saying they don't have to fill out an audit or a review. All we're saying is that the thresholds are a little bit higher. That's all. They still have to fill out the same forms, but you don't have to fill them out until you hit a little bit higher of a threshold.
And all nonprofits have to file with the state, period. This doesn't affect any of that. This is just this is a certain type of audit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion of the report? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 483 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 563, Delegate Baylor, Criminal Law Emergency Response Animal Prohibited Actions Against, favorable with one amendment.
Recognizing Senator from the capital city is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we passed Senate Bill 360, the cross file of this bill, 43-0 out of this chamber. What the House bill does is it repeals the existing prohibition against intentional infliction of bodily harm, permanent disability, or death of an animal, and it replaces it with a broader prohibition that would specifically prohibit the intentional harm, harassment, or interference with an emergency response animal, which would include a dog or horse used by law enforcement. It would subject people to a broader criminal penalty as well. There is one committee amendment. The committee amendment conforms the House bill to the Senate bill. Move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 563 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 738, Delegate Phillips, real property transfer on death deed establishment, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from District 30 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Similarly, this body passed Senate Bill 651, which was the cross-file of this bill, 43-0. This bill would establish a transfer on death deed in the state of Maryland. The bill would also establish the elements for the transfer on death deed, the recording procedure for the transfer on death deed, the effect of the revocation of a transfer on death deed. It would establish the forms that would be required for the transfer on death deed. It would also establish notices and exemptions as well, and then the interpretation of the enforcement of the bill. There is one committee amendment. The committee amendment conforms the House bill to the Senate bill. Move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 738 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 899, Chair, Judiciary Committee, Home Detention Monitoring Agencies, Promotion and Solicitation of Business Prohibition, favorable.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We passed the cross-file of this bill, Senate Bill 540, unanimously, 44-0. It prohibits, on the grounds of a courthouse or a correctional facility, an agent of a private home detention monitoring agency from soliciting on those grounds. There are no committee amendments. Mr. President, I move the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 899 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 907, Delegate Moon, Criminal Law, Third Degree Assault, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill establishes the offense of misdemeanor assault in the third degree, specifies that the district court has exclusive jurisdiction over third degree assault cases, specifies that a person convicted of assault in the third degree is subject to imprisonment for up to 90 days and or a maximum fine of $500, and it authorizes the expungement of a conviction for assault in the third degree. The amended bill is identical to Senate Bill 514, which passed by the Senate earlier this year, 45-0. There are two committee amendments, Mr. President. Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 conforms the bill to Senate Bill 514. I'd move for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 907 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1326, Delegate Wilson, Child Abuse and Neglect, Disclosure of Reports and Records, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 34th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1326 is nearly identical to Senate Bill 447, which passed out of our committee and the Senate unanimously. The bill expands the authority of the Department of Human Services to report child abuse and neglect in the context of employment and volunteerism to child care centers run by the state, to coaches and people similarly situated in sports, and to really any organization that has temporary custody over the children. There was no opposition. The committee unanimously supported the bill again, so we move for the favorable adoption of the committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Recognize the senator from the 40th District on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a question for the floor leader. What problem is this bill hoping to solve?
Well, if you look at what the bill is amending, there is a statute right now that addresses, allowing for, not in all cases mandating, but allowing for notice to be provided of child abuse. I think what's happening here is that, fortunately, I think that some of the cases involve the state of Maryland. People have been employed or have been accepted as volunteers in the very places I just mentioned to you, whether it's a child care center or a sporting organization or a similar organization that has temporary care of a child, and they haven't been well vetted enough, and unfortunately, reports have surfaced later about child abuse, and under Maryland's general law, child abuse is hard to share. I know because I had a separate bill that took me years to get through about trying to get more information out to the public. And there are, we have different policy reasons why we keep some of that information under wraps and why we disclose it. But we are now looking at the fact that we've been so tight-lipped that in actuality, there have been a number of instances where people should not have been employed or allowed to volunteer anywhere near children. And so this is a way to begin to push the department to share that information in certain circumstances.
So is this sharing information of the perpetrator or the victim of abuse?
It's in the context of employment, so this would be related to someone who was applying to either be a volunteer or perhaps be employed. And we already...
So what type of information, because kids that are abused go through a significant amount of trauma, right? And so I'm curious at what type of information would you be sharing with the employer in reference to, would it just be the outcome of the investigation or would it be details of the case?
Now you're getting really deep into the statute. There's a lot of statutes on what the Department of Human Services should be, gathering, or by the very virtue of its place in our government does receive. I can't, at this point I can make reference to the statute because this is expanding to existing statute. This is a very comprehensive area of law. And so reports of child abuse come to that department in various ways. There's software, we've had a lot of litigation about the software and how these records are retained, but in any event, it's a complicated area, and I can't guarantee you that it is only one kind of report, but it'd be clearly a report that made it into that department's records and was retained in an official capacity.
Mr. President, I'm gonna ask that this bill be special order. My concern is kids that go through child abuse and neglect. It's a really, very sensitive issue. And the information that's shared in some of those reports are very damaging. Having that information in the hands of someone that may not be obligated like others to keep the confidentiality of what may happen may further provide trauma to that individual. And so I'm concerned if it's simply for the sake of employment, and I'm not sure of the details. It sounds like the floor leader may not be prepared to understand the details. I understand how significant these reports are, but understand that if the case was indicated or substantiated is one thing, but to get into the harsh realities that a young person may have gone through in the case of abuse and neglect in an environment of a sports team where this information may not be secure, I'm not sure if that's what we want to do. So, Mr. President, I ask that we special order this until tomorrow.
All right, any objections from the committee?
No, Mr. President,
No.
but I would remind the body that, and I believe the senator was here when the cross-file was passed, but I understand that you may have had an opportunity to look at it different, more information. And this is something I've worked on as well, and you're right about being careful about disclosure. I think existing law does protect that, but we're happy to allow the bill to be special ordered so that we can take a look a little further.
All right, if there's no objections, we would special order the bill to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, let's, if we can, Madam Secretary, if we could ring the bells, let's get through some of these third readers just a bit. And if we could do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's go to Senate third reading calendar number 78. 78. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 789, Senator Jennings, Motor Vehicle Administration, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems Repair Study.
Senate Bill 789, third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 789 have received the constitutional majorities declared passed. We'll go to Senate third reading calendar 16. 16. clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 161, Delegate Ruth, Property Tax Credit Retail Service Station Conversions.
House Bill 161 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 161 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 608, the Speaker, Judicial and Quasi-Judicial Employees Compensation.
House Bill 608 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 608 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 919, Delegate Taylor, Maryland Higher Education Commission, Practical Applications of Real Estate Appraisal.
House Bill 919 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 39 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 919 have received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1155, Calvert County Delegation, Calvert County Procurement Long-Term Contracts for Infrastructure and Assessment Management.
House Bill 1155 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1155 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1540, Delegate Harrison, University of Maryland Capital Regional Medical Center, funding, repeal of termination date.
House Bill 1540 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1540 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to 23, third reading calendar 23. These are amended bills. Clerk will read the first one.
House Bill 546, Delegate Wolek, Primary and Secondary Education, Educated Professional Development Course on Wellbeing and Flourishing.
House Bill 546 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 546 having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 571, Delegate Allen, Nonprofit Housing Corporations, Taxes and Special Assessments, Exemptions, Alterations.
House Bill 571 is on third reading, final passage. Recognize the minority whip on the bill.
Mr. President, I know we had second reading and there was an amendment. Can I just get an explanation of, is this only enabling to, or how does this function with our locals on exemptions from taxes and special assessment for nonprofit housing? Maybe I guess I'm asking if the floor leader would
Sarah,
yield.
may proceed.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Two things. First, I want to make very clear. There was initial opposition from MECO and MML to this bill. Because it has been amended, they do not oppose anymore. So it is not enabling. However, there is often in these kinds of deals close collaboration and cooperation. Local governments do have to approve these deals, so that is clearly part of the development process. But no, the bill is straight out an exemption, with the exception of Baltimore City.
Okay, so local governments have to approve it, but they have to approve it.
No.
Okay.
As part of nonprofit housing development programs that get, this bill deals with the low-income housing tax credit. It deals with nonprofit housing development and those that get that federal tax break. That is a very small number of nonprofit development projects. Each year, DHCD has a process. It's very clearly delineated under a federal program. They approve, I'm going to give you roughly 20 to 30 projects each year statewide, and only about 10% of those are nonprofit developers. So we're talking a very small number of projects. Each of those projects certainly like any development project, has to get the requisite approvals, permits, et cetera, like any development project from their local government. So that's what I'm saying.
But what the bill does do for them is, for those, that small percentage of the 20 to 30 is what?
It says that they don't have to pay property tax. Most of these projects at the end of this development process do get pilots. Each jurisdiction has its own process for getting those pilots. Not all of them get pilots, but many of them do. This puts the tax credit up front, and it helps to develop housing. It helps with the financing. These are often very complicated deals, and it gives some predictability and stability across the state to these particular projects. I hope that's helpful.
No, that is helpful, and I just understanding they don't have to pay property tax, like ever. I'm thinking they build the apartment building and then they're done, and that apartment building never has to pay property tax. But I'm assuming the floor leader would say they're going to continue to own that. They're going to continue to operate that property. These are like nonprofit housing.
Yes.
That they continue to operate it. They don't build it and then move on.
No.
It's not like Habitat for Humanity that builds a house for somebody and then moves on. This is nonprofit.
Correct. And most of these are rental properties.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the answer. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sure.
All right. Further discussion on the on third reading. Bills on third reading. Recognize Senator from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question that will help me, I guess, in my deliberation. A point of information. There's a change in the legislation that defines affordable housing as rental housing. Have we determined if, since this is written to the portion of the article that is applied in all jurisdictions, does it change the definition of affordable housing to only be rental housing?
Absolutely not. This is just with regard to these specific arrangements.
Mr. President, I would look to that section of the definitions, and that it does not specifically say that. So I was just wondering, there's a number of definitions that are in 12.101 that speaks to defining what affordable housing is, and I don't see any other definition that could be used in other portions of that section.
On page 2, subsection C, line 14.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, in this subsection.
And which subsection is it referring to?
See, it says, in this section, housing shall be deemed housing for persons of eligible income under section 12.106 of this subtitle if the housing is developed in whole or in part using a credit allowed under section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code, or developed, owned, or operated on real property subject to income restrictions imposed or enforceable by law. So that is contained, that definition is contained for those specific elements.
So those specific elements under the general provisions, though, article.
This is it is changing the article, the housing and community development, but the definition is in that subsection.
So the subsection has to do with what?
The subsection has to do with the topic of this bill, which is only those projects that fall under that specific part of the Internal Revenue Code, and those that are developed, owned, or operated with certain income restrictions.
So, Mr. President, again, a point of information, that section seems to be addressing the tax-exempt status of the entity, not simply the project. So I was just wondering if there was clarification, because in this section, it's discussing housing authority and entities, and again, a part of that is talking about the nonprofit entities that are controlled by the authority. And then it goes on to discuss payment in lieu of taxes, et cetera. So I'm wondering, I would like to be able to be pointed kind of clearly where changing the definition of affordable housing to rental housing, how it does not impact or address other housing entities or supply in that section. And again, this is all to the points of information to help us deliberate on this bill.
Yeah, as I previously said, this is all very specific to these particular properties, these particular developers, these particular individuals who are going to be living in those properties.
Yeah. And so this, I guess another sort of point of information in this particular section, identifying affordable housing, I guess I want to better understand, one, where affordable housing means only rental housing.
Page 2, line 16. Affordable housing means rental housing.
Right.
And then it goes on to delineate further.
So if the affordable housing developer is doing affordable housing project for home ownership, would it not apply under this?
Not apply under this bill.
So incentivizing the largest wealth, ability for low-income people to have access to wealth is not included in this. Okay, that's helpful.
It's not. It's a really important issue, but it is not the topic of this specific bill.
And so just to, again, to clarify for points of information, how many, I noticed that there is on page 2 of the reprint, at the very bottom, there's something that says the subsection does not apply to a housing project owned by a nonprofit housing corporation or an entity that is controlled or wholly owned by a nonprofit housing corporation that before July 1st, 2026 received a financial contribution, including a loan, a grant, or other direct financial assistance for the development of the housing project from a political subdivision in which the housing project is located. That's a very, Mr. President, that's a very, that's a very narrow definition.
It is, and the reason is to make this prospective, because there were projects already in the pipeline that have pilots or have these arrangements, and one particular jurisdiction reached out to us about it, so we wanted to just clarify for them that this didn't apply to those already existing negotiated projects.
And then for, I guess, a point of information, so that jurisdiction was Montgomery County?
It was.
Okay. And so, then the nonprofit housing corporations, there was a change in the definition to make nonprofit housing corporations, well, to exclude charitable private corporations that provide safe or sanitary housing to persons of eligible income. So are there, again, it's just a point of information, it's my understanding that there are entities that, with that division, with that definition struck, would not be eligible for, or would not be included actually at all in this section. Because this section doesn't just refer to, just as a point of information, the changes that the Maryland Housing Affordable Coalition wants, but it also addresses broader information about how the properties are used, et cetera. So it would appear by changing this definition that you are excluding other entities that currently operate in the state from adherence to this subtitle.
So it applies to any nonprofit development organization that also gets a low-income housing tax credit. So I think it was just for clarification. I don't know of any of those, as I described, that would be excluded under this bill.
So not clear. In other words, there are charitable private corporations that are not defined. So under the new definition, charitable this new criteria, it's my understanding there are a number of organizations currently doing housing development might not apply, or would be stricken from this portion.
Not that I'm not aware of any that would be. I think it was just for further clarification, but I am not aware of any that would be excluded because of a clearer definition.
Mm-hmm. So we were, so in the committee's, guess a different thing. I think another point of information would be that this is a specific low-income housing tax credit program. Would the fact that these entities, would the fact that these entities would not pay local income tax, property tax, would that then be considered or be interpreted kind of the way that TIFs are used, that they can roll that and count that as an asset?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that it helps them make the projects work more affordably. And it is a value that we have expressed that is important to us. We all know what a lack of housing we have, and so the goal here is to enable folks to build more housing that's affordable for all Marylanders.
And also, just again, the point of information being very clear that there are other types of affordable housing and incentives.
Absolutely.
And that we've already passed, I believe, quite a number of incentives. And this one is just seems to be very, very narrow. So are there at least 50% units reserved, and is this a certain sector where it's approved? Again, because I know that the organizations that provided the initial testimony is the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition that acts both, there's affordable housing, but also acts very closely with for-profit
they do
developers. So, and in fact, some of these nonprofit developers roll off sub-businesses that are for-profit. Would this be therefore providing a possible pass-through for incentivizing their for-profit entities?
No, I mean, this is really focused just on nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
Nonprofits, again, a very narrow, and I'm happy to share with you some of the names of those organizations, but it's a pretty narrow group of
so would
projects.
any of them be like Homes for America? Is that one of them?
Yep, that is one of them.
As
is Enterprise Episcopal Housing, GEDCO, Bon Secours Community Works, Mission First, Montgomery Housing Partnership, National Housing Trust, True Ground Housing Partners, Victory Housing, and there are a bunch of others.
But specifically, certain groups, it's my understanding that particularly Homes for America, and Enterprise do quite a lot of leveraging of our low-income housing tax credit. And again, this is why we should pay attention, is that these are tax credits that are offered at the state level and they're competitive. So one of the, again, for points of information for the committee, for the body, one of the criteria for being eligible or being selected for some of these tax credits is the fiscal condition of the financial condition of the organization, as well as the projects. So this particular incentive does well, because it's a competitive process, does appear to position certain entities with the ability to improve their chances in that process. Could committee staff or anyone verify that?
Well,
but the goal would be to make these applications more competitive, not just in terms of you know, making the deal and building the housing, but also make them more competitive vis-a-vis other entities that are similarly applying.
This doesn't have anything to do with the LIHTC application process. That is a separate process that's run through DHCD. It has its own federal requirements. It has its own state requirements. This is separate from that, insofar as the only entities that can qualify under this would already have had to have had their LIHTC application approved and be nonprofit. Right.
So just point of information, part of the process of approving for a LIHTC application is the financial status and probability of the project. And if certain entities that qualify under this section are now able to use their resources and have their resources that they would have counted as taxes, knowing that, okay, going forward, I'm not going to have to pay taxes, then that gets rolled into the deal and actually can make the organization and the project appear more financially stable than it would otherwise.
But again, this actually creates a more stable process going forward, because every jurisdiction would be treated the same way, as opposed to having differentiation between county X, county Y, county Z. So this actually creates a more even playing field among the different entities.
So why DHCD is in here is because it is written to, you know, not the tax code, which is interesting, but it's written to the Housing and Community Development article. So it does have an impact, whether, you know, this altering the definition of the housing corporation for eligibility of exemption. So it's saying that only this type of organization has eligibility for exemption when there are multiple entities that currently operate under this article.
That's current law.
Yes, it is.
The tax treatment.
Right, and changing the definition changes how those who are eligible is defined.
For those very narrow projects.
Again, a point of information, the definition is, from my reading, not for the project, but for the entity.
I think we've covered this.
Okay. So that are my questions for now. Just on the bill, Mr. President, I appreciate what was interesting is that the bill came in seeking exemptions from tax enforcement and judgments. Now the bill has been converted into seeking exemptions from taxes and special assessments. Often those special assessments, you know, are assessed at the local level. So while Baltimore City is being exempted from this bill, other jurisdictions' ability to make, fair assessments on these projects in terms of their local impact or the stress it might have on their plumbing, their sewer, their school systems. They won't be able to generate any revenue to make improvements to the schools or the roads, et cetera. Additionally, I do believe, and I think it's just a drafting error or just an oversight or something, but there are a number of changes in the definitions, particularly excluding charitable private corporations. Again, this narrowing of the definition, where there are certain very large entities, that share board direction with the Maryland Association of Affordable Housing and other groups, where I think it sets an unfair advantage for a very small portion of the population, of those who are doing the work of affordable housing, and that we should be, if we're doing this, we are actually doing this in other areas. I oppose the bill, or I think since possibly we could look at it and see how it fits, but there are some very serious questions, I think, about its broader implications in changing that definition of what affordable housing means, in narrowing. I don't think there's an equivalency with nonprofit corporation with private housing corporation. I believe that there are some distinctions there. Again, I'm voting I would oppose the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question is on third reading. Recognized senator from the 22nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few questions for the floor leader on the bill.
Senator, could we potentially special order? Would the Senator be open to
I move to special order this bill to the next session, Mr. President.
Maybe we could take some of them off. Are there any objections to the special order? Take it up tomorrow.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Without objection, we'll special order the bill at the appropriate time tomorrow. We have the House committees that are starting, and so I think that this might go for an extended period. So if we take it up tomorrow, we'll take it up earlier in the calendar tomorrow. If let's go to. Oh shoot! All right. We do. All right. Let's do these quickly. House Bill 809 is on third reading, final passage. Oh, Madam Clerk, if we could read the bill, the next bill.
House Bill 809, Delegate Rosenberg, Walter Sondheim, Jr. Public Service Internship Scholarship Program funding on third reading.
All right, third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 809 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1324, Delegate Rosenberg, Baltimore City and Natural Resources Archery Hunting Safety Zones.
House Bill 1324 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1324 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1422, Delegate Solomon, State Procurement and Personnel Liquidated Damages Documentation Requirement and State Fiscal Leadership Capacity.
House Bill 1422 is on third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1422 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. We have the special order of the exec noms. We'll just hold on it for now. I think we're fine. So let's go ahead and check on schedules. We don't have anything this afternoon for the floor, but Chair Finance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance will meet at 2 o'clock for a voting session.
Excellent. All right, Tripoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tripoli will meet at 2 p.m. for bill hearings, followed immediately by a voting session. Thank you. 2 p.m.
Budget and tax? No. Judicial proceedings?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 2 p.m. for voting session.
2 p.m. Any additional standing committees, select committees, caucuses, Baltimore County delegation? Nope. Ethics?
Yes, tomorrow morning at 9:50, the Ethics Committee will be meeting. I believe it's in the Raider Room.
Excellent. All right. Ethics in the morning. Any, yes, Anne Arundel County delegation?
Yes, Mr. President. The Anne Arundel County delegation will meet in the hallway just quickly after floor on one bill.
All right. Any further delegations, caucuses? If not, I think that does it. Let's do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Wednesday, April 8th at 10 a.m.
Without objection, so ordered. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you tomorrow.